I am so excited. This is our second year that Susan McKenzie and I are talking about the colors that have been chosen for 2021. The colors that we will speak about today are under Pantone, which they dictate colors not only in the home decor, but in fashion, in cars. And so we will begin by talking about those colors. And then there are many huge paint companies out there. I would like to always stick to one, and I will be talking about what Benjamin Moore has chosen this year. What is interesting is I'll just talk a little bit about color, then we can talk about ourselves, is that this is, I don't know if I want to say the first year, but I've not seen two colors from Pantone. So it's very interesting. I'm very excited. So I'm a house coach, a holistic house coach, and I'm all about interior design, functionality, and also the energy. So I do feel a lot in terms of the energy and the design component for the colors. And it'll be really interesting to hear what Susan has to say. So Susan is a color therapist, and thank you so much, Susan, for coming on. I'm always excited when we could do this together because you give me so many great ideas and opens up my mind for thinking, which I'm so happy that we can share this out to everybody. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what a color therapist is.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Thank you for asking me to do this again, Anya. I just find it so fascinating because I know that, there are people behind these colors, there are people behind what they do. And, everybody has, everybody connects to color in some way. So I'm a color therapist. I work with the psychology of color and this lovely system behind me called Color Mirrors. And it is color therapy works on the basis that we understand color on a very deep subconscious level. And then when we connect to it, it helps us to relieve blocks that stop us from moving forward in our lives with our relationships and jobs and, whatnot. But it also helps to highlight our gifts, talents, and potential. And color just always supports us in any way. So I just love color. Even though I'm wearing white, I love color. So sometimes I can't figure out what color I want to wear, right? But yeah, so I just find these so fascinating because it's a global thing, and that's what I just love about that.
I have worked with you for some time, so I want to ask this question because I'd like everybody who is tuning in to hear you. Talk to me a little bit about white.
Talk to you a little bit about white.
Because you're wearing white. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I always wear white if I read. And the reason why I wear white is because white reflects all color. So when for me, it's all about not influencing anybody's decisions about anything. I don't always wear white, but I wear whatever I feel like wearing. But generally, if I'm going to talk about color, I wear white because it's a very neutral color and it does reflect all color. So and then it also highlights whatever it's paired next to, and it just kind of shines a light on that as well. So if you look at light in itself, right, it's white and it goes through prism and and it helps to highlight the color. So that's what I love about white.
Thank you. I wear white as well when I do energy clearing because it is a light color that then will take whatever is coming through on for us to then release. And so it is a sort of color in the energy clearing sort of department that it's able to take it on much openly and then help diffuse it as opposed to some other colors, which can actually then be sort of in one way distracting. So that's very interesting. So let's start with our slide presentation. I'm going to put the share screen on and let's go here. And we can press play. There we go. So as we can see, I picked the colors that we're going to be talking about in here, but we will begin with really where and how this all comes about. So this is through Benjamin Moore, and they gave us a little synopsis on where they sort of come with whatever the colors are for the year coming. And so definitely where you're seeing the door, Stockholm, it's very much environment, different parts of the world. I noticed I see the amethyst crystal there, which is interesting in the lavender. So I'm going to say that we're seeing more and more crystals come into mainstream again, even though I feel, well, we can go into that later on. Also below is fashion. Fashion plays a huge role, as I said before, with really streetwear. You know, there's a lot of watching, what are the artsy people wearing? A lot of this always comes from those bohemian little cities or parts of the different neighborhoods of those cities. And the artists, which is at the top, sort of incongruent with the fashion, they really can feel the energies. They're really tapped into it. um, I really notice, knowing a lot of my artist friends and family. And the above, where you see the art, it's really looking at the modern and the classic art, as well as below they are then getting a feeling for design. And more so, they start with the textures of the different fabrics, and they go either into sort of the natural component, what's outside, maybe what's inside, in sort of like when we're seeing the grays, it's like I'm seeing concrete and stuff like that. So that's where sort of that thinking tack kind of begins at the process.
So Anya, just a quick question. So when did they start this whole process?
Well, Pantone begins 9 months ago. So if it came out last week, we are in, I think, the third week of December. So they came out with it second week of December. They say 9 months. So 9 months from then is
So
when
that
they
would take us
started.
back to March, right?
Interesting.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Especially with this year. I really wanted to dive into this year. I know we could have talked about last year's, but I just felt like, because there's three colors, I want to really just, focus on this year's. So I'm going to go with the next page, and I'm going to just I'm going to just show those two colors, which is Pantone. And I'm going to ask you if you can begin talking about it from your point of view.
For sure. Wow, look at that lovely yellow and a gray. And I find this so fascinating, Anya, because I feel that they actually cut in, or they tap into the other color that we were looking at on the other sheet. So, I'm first thing I'm going to talk about is gray. And, gray is an interesting color because it is black and white, and it's a mixture of black and white. And, depending upon the actual gray itself, it'll be, darker or lighter. And that would be, relevant to whether or not it had, more, whether or not it had more black or more white into it, right? But gray combines black and white. And as we had talked about earlier about white, is that white lights up any color that it's paired with. So there you have, if you're mixing gray with another color, it's going to actually, the white in the gray is going to actually light up another color, right? Black is the void, and it's the place where life incubates. I just love that. I actually took that out of one of my color books that I have from the Color Mirror system. And it takes us into stored memories of the body, and it draws out these stories. And that's what color does in itself. But black really draws out these stories, and it draws them out so that we can actually look at them once and for all. So we takes them for deep down in the subconscious, brings them to light, right? It helps us to open and realize that everything that we've judged or feared or claimed as wrong is really just part of the divine, because we are part of the divine, and so is everything else within us. If we come from the space that, we all come from source and we're all connected, then, we don't need to judge or fear anything. We just need to just say, this is just what it is, right? And really the reality of that is, it's easier to just kind of let that kind of stuff go, right? But it makes us look at ourselves and everything in a completely different light. And I think that's why I think it's really fascinating that these colors were what we're starting in March, when, here in Canada, it's like, that's when really everything hit the fan and off we went, right? And into lockdown, and the pandemic became this reality in our lives, right? But it also helps us to come to a place of acceptance of the perfection of life. Because the reality of it all is that, we really don't have a lot of control over what is going on, and it just is perfect, and it is the reality of it. So, we really need to, embrace that. And gray is really sitting there supporting either side of that, either the side of white or the side of gray, right? Sorry, I can't believe I said that. The side of white or the side of black. So within gray, you have both of those, and both of those are supported.
I have two questions that just sort of, or points that just have come up. One is polarity and one is perfection, which of the control. So I want to begin with polarity first. So when you talk about the black and white, polarity comes up for me. You can't have one without the other. You can't have dark without the light. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can
With
talk
this color?
from a personal point of view. The way I look at black and white, and I look at that polarity, is that there is the balance. Well, gray is the balance. If you're going to look at both of them in between, right? Gray is the balance of black and white together, right? But on one side, white in itself is, it holds this light and holds space of light. And then the black, it's interesting. Black can mean many things for many different people. People really, veer away from black because because of what they think about the color. And then other people will be drawn towards black because in black, the black dress, the nice black dress, right? And women wear black a lot because it hides. They think it hides. Well, it does actually, but we feel that it hides whatever it is that we don't want to show, right? And so, I always look at that as black is this place of black is a place of I'm gonna say, don't want to say darkness, but it is, it is a bit of a place of darkness, but it really, it's in that space that we probably grow our greatest, right? And it is to come out of that black to move towards white, right? That's what I believe anyway. I don't
And
know if that is your question.
yeah, no, that's because I'm looking at forecasting, because we're talking about these colors forecasting for 2021. And for sure, I'm coming from, the design element, and you're coming from the color. And it's not really about 2020, even though they sat and started thinking about it in 2020. So will there be maybe a bigger understanding, knowledge, emphasis on polarity in 2021, I guess, is what I'm thinking. And also with the yellow being perfection, but control, we're already seeing in I mean, I'm not that I'm going to know all about the whole world news, but we are seeing that there are people there that are following what is being told. So they're I don't want to say they're being controlled, but they're following. And then there are others that are like, I'm not going to be controlled. So I feel that this control is coming up much stronger, in 2021, where it began towards the latter part of 2020. And so that's sort of what I'm coming out of with what you're saying about those two colors.
Well, sure. Here's the thing. Like I think it's interesting that it was developed over this, over 2020, and we're moving into 2021. And so what it's going to do is whatever came to light for people in 2020, I think, in regards to the black white situation, right? You know, the gray supports both, right? Wherever you are, whether you were in that space where you were okay with what was, you know, like, I mean, when I say okay, I mean, you know, there obviously there comes to a place of acceptance, right? And I mean, we can get into conversations about what's been going on, but I think that what it does is for everybody personally, I think everybody has discovered many things about themselves because they were put into a position where they were forced to, right? And I think that gray supports both sides of it. And I think that's what the beauty of it is. There's balance in gray, right? Because and then there's particularly this gray, because it really does feel like a balanced gray. It's not like a deep, dark charcoal gray. It feels like a really balanced gray it looks almost like equally black and equally white. And so it provides that support for everybody. And I think that that's why that color was brought in. And we know gray in itself in decor, gray is an easy. I painted my family room gray, ironically, you know, over the last little while. So it's kind of funny that I thought, well, when I was thinking about the colors, how interesting that is that I brought in gray, but gray is a very neutral color. So it can support whatever is out there,
Yeah.
right? It can support people, whatever they're going through, gray can support people, in whatever aspect they need, right?
Yes. And as you mentioned in design, it is continuing to be the neutral color that has been around for a while. However, the shade is more of a soft gray this time, as opposed to a cool gray. And it's teaming up very nicely with the yellow. We can definitely see it. I can definitely see that with decor, and I have one pick. But even if, you know, we look, like, I have the yellow top and then I've got gray, you know, on the bottom. So even with fashion, how lovely that goes together. Um, so then
What
with
I'd like, what I'd like to talk about is yellow as well, because
yes, I
yellow
was going to
paired
say I
with
want to
gray.
go into yellow now. Yes, so
Yeah,
talk to me
so
about.
yellow, you know, yellow makes things happen, which I love, right? You know, it's a place where ascension begins. Now, when I talk about ascension, I talk about this, you know, ascension isn't something out there. Ascension is here. It's like, it's like personal ascension. It's like us moving into a greater place of self-discovery. And I think many people have gone into that space of self-discovery, finding out things about themselves and you know, looking at that. They've you know, 2020 was also about you know, connecting with and looking at people, places, and things that no longer serve us. And by shedding things, behaviors, whatever it is, by shedding that brings us into that space of ascension. And so yellow really supports that. And it again, it feels like it puts us into this feeling of being on the brink of something, but it helps us also to connect to ceaseless joy. Isn't that lovely? Yellow is the color of joy, without a doubt. And again, like everything, when we talk about polarity, yellow has you know, I'm not going to call them negative, because I don't think they're negative. I just think that they are. But there's two sides to yellow as well, whereas it has this, you know, joy, and it brings us back into this childlike awe in joy, like that real joy, where, you know, that giddy kind of joy, right? And it also brings us into that space of rational and the logical mind. But it also, you know, it also can tap into fear and confusion and addictions to not necessarily substance, but you know, more like also behaviors, right? But it goes beyond the light of the soul, and it engages us to live our life in joy. And it helps us to take those things that we perceived as darkness, or it helps us to, you know, embrace perceived darkness, just to actually embrace it rather than to fear it, because the unknown is the unknown, right? So it helps us to just be okay with that, because it is the unknown. Everything is the unknown. We always know that it's the unknown. We just fool ourselves to believe that it's known, but it's always unknown, because we don't know what happens, right? We don't know what's going to happen in 2021. We didn't know what was going to happen in 2020, right? And so, so I think that it kind of almost like this yellow kind of just supports everybody in that, wherever they're at, and helps to move us forward, right?
Mhm. So I like hearing makes things happen. Um, Energetically, I'm feeling when you're saying this is that um, through what's happened in 2020, and we're still obviously in it, is that we might be making things like changing things much quicker, and not sitting back and going, well, one day, someday, where, wait a minute, no, I, I'm going to give an example of traveling. Well, we wanted to go there. We can travel again. We're doing it because what are we waiting for? Or, um, the home. I wanted to do a reno, a mini reno, a big reno. I want to, get a new couch. I wanted to paint, whatever it is. It's kind of like that Nike slogan, just do it. So make it happen. So I
Yeah.
think we're going to be more, well, I shouldn't say I think, but just from what you're saying is that we're going to be more active in doing the do of what it is that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it feels like to me.
Very exciting.
I know.
So this is just the next slide that they, did another look of teaming it together. And that yellow just is, and it says illuminating, right? It is got this beautiful energy of it. And I definitely can see it with some beautiful accents around the home, really bringing in this uplifting joy, I guess I want to say.
Absolutely. And when people are bringing in these accents, that's really what it's going to do. It's going to bring in that space of joy, and it'll clear the confusion and fear, and move us over to that side. Right. And if, paired with that, the white within the gray is going to actually help that as well. And,
Yeah.
and the black within the gray paired with yellow, what that'll do is it'll also just help us to bring everything that we need to get rid of within ourselves, that doesn't serve us any longer. It'll help bring that to light so that we can just release it.
Beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, I really love it.
And this is just a sample of a feel that, how teaming up these colors can look. And so they haven't done a whole room, but they did a color blocking on the
God,
wall.
look at that blanket. That just looks like a, you don't want to put that around you, just like a joyful
Yeah.
hug. Oh,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, exactly. And then the two accents, the pillow and that beautiful cable knit throw. And it's interesting because it's sitting on white, and you talked about white. So that's really interesting. And then you see the gray, right, with the headboard
it.
and then the art form on the wall. And the color behind that is, it could be sort of like a barley or neutrally cream, but it's creamy. So it's a warm color as opposed cool.
Yeah.
So, and so we are going to go into the Benjamin Moore, and they have chosen one color, which is this teal. And they describe this color, and then I'm going to let you jump in. It's a blend of blue, green, and gray. So, what do you have to say about Asian teal?
Well, Anya, in our preparation for this, when you sent me the colors, when I looked at that, I went, ew. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I looked at that and went, ew, ooh, that looks really dull. And ironically, all I got was that picture. And then the first thing I thought of was, this feels like teal, or feels like turquoise with gray, which is what blue and green is, turquoise, and it has gray in it. And so it's interesting, right? That, and I'm going to talk about turquoise paired with gray. And first, of course, the color combinations are really interesting. Like when you put two colors together, like the bottles that I work with, a lot of them are actually dual colored bottles. So the actual combination of colors actually say something rather than just the color together. So I'm going to talk about turquoise and black because, as we talked about earlier, gray is a combination of black and white. So turquoise and black is about overcoming blockages. So that's right. So isn't that interesting? We're already talking, we were talking about this earlier, how it helps us to move forward and helps us to clear blockages and overcome them. It's about transformation. And black and turquoise is also about a difficult journey coming to an end, or moving through a difficult journey to eventually come to that end. But it helps us to open our eyes, because quite often we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so if we're in that space and we're feeling that this, that black and turquoise will actually help to remove whatever it is, to help us move towards that light at the end of the tunnel. But then on the other side of that, we have turquoise with white, because as we said, gray is a combination of black and white. And so we have turquoise and white, and that, brings in great clarity and beauty, and helps with decision making. It supports any shutdown of emotions and aids us in opening up. And I would think a lot of people, I talk to people because that's my job. And some people feel very isolated and really closed down, because they don't want to have to be in that space to constantly deal with themselves and their emotions. Because sometimes we go through life, and who wants to constantly be doing self work all the time, 24/7? And when you're locked in a house, sometimes that's what you have to do, right? But it provides support. This is interesting. And I'm not even making this stuff up. It provides support for those who feel alone and isolated. I know, right? And then it helps to shift emotional blockages for emotional healing, so that we can get back into the flow of life. Because turquoise is about flow. It's all like, think about water, right? Water flows. And really turquoise is about the flow of life. And it's about the flow of life. It's about the flow of communication. And that's the space that it brings us into. So yeah, so there you have it. That's that Aegean teal. So I kind of felt a little bit better about it once I read that. And then you have some really great slides. And I think they're really interesting, the slides that you have for this, because it really does highlight some of that stuff that I was just talking about.
Yeah, before we go into that, I just want to go into a little bit from some notes that I made. So you talk about transformation, which is really interesting, because from an astrological point of view, we are all finishing this chapter, if you want to say. And I don't know if it's been since 1983. I didn't look it up or anything like that, but I know we're all finishing that up this month, actually. And so also we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So we are all transforming. And so it's very interesting that you say that. And also about clarity and opening up, I want to talk about the throat chakra and communication. And that is also, interesting. I mean, that is a blue color, if we look at the color. But again, I think it goes to where I said 2020, when I said, the Nike slogan, just do it, kind of the same thing, where it's like, you know what, I'm going to communicate how I feel. I'm going to, it doesn't need to be, it could be done with love and everything like that. But I will not do myself justice if I just sit back and do nothing. I need to sort of speak my truth.
Heartfelt communication, turquoise,
Yes.
heartfelt communication.
Okay, that's really beautiful. Okay, so then we'll go to the next one then. So this is again, as it's important for the paint companies to kind of give us an idea of how you can team things up, because it's quite possible when a new color comes up and you just see what we just saw, which is like the blob. It's like, what? How am I going to put that in my home? But if we look at this picture here, it looks beautiful with that teak wood, and they're giving it a real feel of mid-modern century feel with that chair as well. And if you look at that piece of wall art, which is just a blank slate, but it is a color, and again, it is a very sort of creamy, warm white, where there is some yellow in it, because yellow if you're mixing colors, you need to actually put a little bit of yellow to make creamy. I'm sure we all know that. And if you go deeper into that flower, you can see just a tinge of yellow in there. So it's interesting about the yellow. And then the other slide, which is completely different, it feels more fresh. And it even looks a little bit cooler, this Aegean teal. Um, but it's, paired up again with that very creamy white. And gives it a really feel of lightness.
Now, see, Anya, the first picture, I look at that and I go, I would never paint my room that color. And I look at this picture and I go, yeah, I would look at that. And I go, oh God, no, I would never paint my room. I've had my room maybe a little bit more of a greeny teal, that color. But I look at that picture right there that you have up now, and I just go, that's just beautiful. And again, because it's paired with white. So clearly whatever it is, that I'm looking at, I'm just thinking that actually really is highlighting these beautiful, the beautiful properties of teal, and it's shining the light on those beautiful properties for me as a color therapist, of that heartfelt communication, that, getting us back into the flow of life, support, I just think that it's just so much lighter, and I just think it's a much easier room to be in. Which is interesting because there's more furniture and whatever, you would think that maybe the clutter might make you feel a little bit different, but I actually feel that actually is just a lovely room. But the other one, I look at that, I would never pick that pink color if I saw that picture. Yeah. Right.
And coming from the design, because I do a lot of color consultations with clients, and just because, let's say, oh, I want to have that color because this is the color of the year, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to look great in our spaces. And so,
do people do that, Anya?
Well, I know I just finished with a client, and we picked colors for the whole house. And her painter said, what he's like, I really didn't think like a color, a certain gray meant a certain gray, but he goes, I can't believe these colors that you chose. They are so gorgeous. And I said to her, I said, well, this is why it's important to connect with a designer, because they can really see color and understand it. And what color sort of gives, like, what is it that you need and want in this room? So if we're looking at, sorry, if we're, oh, if we're looking at this room here, this very possibly could suit somebody who's a really, I don't know, let's say office type academic that is doing a lot of, I could see books in there, I could see bookshelves in wood and everything like that. So it really just depends what the need is for the space and how the color reflects in that light. Because the colors that I have in my office, which I love, they don't look the same in another space. And there's different shades. Like, you can't see this now, but I have black for my tin ceiling in, and I had to go through at least maybe 12 different blacks before I could find that right shade. So color really